far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Thanks again. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with us. As I've introduced the panelists for today, we have Camille Isaacs Morel and Andrea Babington. Camille, again, is bringing her experience to us, sharing her experience to us as an executive director of the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal. And we have Andrea is going to be sharing with us based on her experience as a union member and advocating for her members and employees while working from home versus in the office and or hybrid opportunities. We also have here Yvette Blackburn, and Yvette will also be adding. We have good meat in this meeting today, so we look forward to sharing. I will start with asking Camille a question about her. Our first question we're going to ask Camille. The question for you is, what are the disadvantages of working from home as a woman who wants to advance your career versus being in the office and or hybrid? That's for Camille. You're on mute.
Thank you, first of all, everyone, for having me on this panel. It's a privilege to be with persons of such eminent achievement in Canada. Just a clarification, I am the former executive director of the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal. I'm currently the vice president of Hope for Dementia.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, to answer your question, what are the disadvantages of working from home, particularly for women who want to advance in their career? We know that, practically speaking, there are the advantages are that there's no more commuting in traffic, there's greater productivity, or at least some people feel that way, and they have flexible time management. The downside of working from home, particularly for women who want to advance in their career, is that you're not visible on a daily basis. You are missing out very often on important decision-making meetings, which can happen quite informally and spontaneously in the office. There's informal networking opportunities that continue in the office when persons are present, the famous chatting around the water cooler or in the lunchroom. And they're more likely to miss out on opportunities to demonstrate their capacity to take on more responsibility and to be promoted. You have specific deliverables when you are working from home, but when you're in the office, you have those specific deliverables, but then there may be the opportunity to contribute to informal projects. So the loss of visibility also decreases your visibility. The loss of visibility, decreases the interaction that you have with persons, and also it cuts out a lot of the very important but informal interactions that support career advancement. I just wanted to mention too that in a survey that was conducted by Deloitte some time ago, 51% of downtown Montreal office workers said that they found it extremely difficult to build professional relationships or maintain professional relationships when they're working from home. Maintaining professional relationships, particularly for women, supports their career advancement. The other thing I wanted to point out too is that if you're working from home, the concern that you're not able to progress in your career is real, because you feel as if you're just doing the same thing and you're not having enough face time with persons who can promote you. That's just in a nutshell. The lack of visibility leads very often to the lack of promotability. So that's one thing that I think is a key point for me. There's the other aspect of the engagement, in work. After a while, you can tend to get bored and not want to go the extra mile, and you tend to work to rule if you're not that motivated. So those are just a few points.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So you're saying we might have missed opportunities here. Well, I'm gonna move on to Andrea. Thank you again. Thanks again, Andrea. I'm gonna ask you to share with me, with us, from a labor's perspective, what are the benefits of working from home, hybrid, or in the office as a union member or not being a union member? What are the benefits? You can share both options for us. And we did have three options here: working from home, working from the office, or hybrid. Would you share with us your views as from the labor's perspective?
Yeah, thank you. So coming into this discussion, it's quite interesting because not too long ago, I think every so often the conversation would happen where people look in Europe at the opportunity to work 4 days a week, and that was before COVID. That would have been a bonus for everyone. And since COVID, I think we got to a place where maybe most the employer that got the benefit of their employees working from home didn't it wasn't enough time to negotiate with workers if they want to use their kitchen table or their basement or use their bedroom or various areas of their home for work. They were grateful for whatever that make the money keep coming in. And so we now that we are looking at recovery, I think part of it it's looking at there's employer who now are also reviewing their own external workspace, where we are seeing a lot of these employers are downsizing office space. Workers are booking when to go into the office, so because it's limited space in it. But hearing and from the Labor Council, I get to hear from a number of workers from different sector. And so, as I talk a bit about it, I also want to talk about the other side in a while. But I think the bonus as union members for workers that saying, look, I want to work from home, and the employer that also initiating that working from home makes sense or reduced days working, that there is a collective agreement in place, and the process is there to bargain new things. And some of the things that we see popping up right now, I can tell you for myself, I spend hours on my computer, and likewise, a lot of workers who work from home and are they're on Zoom. You're on your computer a lot, and I find one thing I look at, yeah, like in negotiation, it's an opportunity to bargain where an employer maybe in the past would say, "I'll give you $300 for high care." Now we find sitting in front of the screen for so long, it's going to take more than that because you now need to adjust that to pay into more for a glass that you need to for your computer, and also lighting with that. I heard over the years where I was told when I go to do my glass, you shouldn't sit in front of the screen for more than maybe three and a half hours or so. You should take a break. When in fact, that's not the case. We schedule Zoom and you jump off one Zoom to the other. And so you could be sitting for 8 hours or more just in front of a screen. So it's opportunity as union for us to make sure that we are improving those benefits. And also uh, I would say no one ever asked the question about when the work came to home, who pay for those utility bills? Who pay for the internet bill? Who pay just because I have internet for my family doesn't mean that it's yours. So how do you upgrade that? And how do you make sure that I'm not still sitting three and a half years later on my kitchen chair? And the ergonomic thinking is in that. Um, and a lot of these benefits that's there and maybe new thing that we're not even talking about. Again, like I feel it's so important. Um, very rare you hear of someone who say, I'm outside taking fresh air. I step away from my desk and I'm taking the fresh air from that, right? It seems as if you're slacking off. So a lot of this is where we get to sit down and actually negotiate these things. So it's a common ground because in a way the employer want the work done, and sometimes there's a lack of trust if they're getting all of what they want into it and not necessarily looking at the amount of overtime that person put into the work and as well. So
Andrea, I want to ask, so are you seeing opportunities for us to still take advantage of work-life balance? What are you seeing from a labor's perspective? What are the unions pushing or pulling on? I'm just going to give you a few minutes to answer that, and then we're going to ask Yvette to contribute because I'm sure she has a lot of experience here as well with this options. I hear the vision care, I hear of ergonomics, I hear of comfort, and I hear of maybe lack of support and funding for your expenses.
yeah. And Yeah, I think one other part of it too, because even though the worker might feel, okay, I've been doing this for more than 3 years, and why not? Like, we see it work, and it's not just the worker who sees, the employer too sometimes is initiating this. There is another side of it where I think that the disconnections sometimes with coworkers, um, where we'll see where we got to make sure that mental illness is also something that we are taking into consideration, not just because that person is at home that everything is well, and also not feeling stressed out that just because I take a bathroom break or I step out to go walk when that should be my break, I'm still in time where we see a lot of device companies coming in and they're building all these devices that they're introducing to the employer to monitor the worker, that they're at
Okay.
their computer, and when did you get on, when did you get off, and it bothers a lot of workers thinking, wow, like this is how I'm being watched.
Okay,
So
we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna address that on the second part where we're gonna talk about the trust issues and the options of putting process in place to deliver the balance. So we're gonna mark that one. I'm gonna come back to you with that. Yvette, did you wanna add something here before I ask Camille the next question?
Well, Camille and Andrea has raised some very key things, but coming from the education space, right? There's also the aspect of the online learning and what transpired, and we still have boards that are offering hybrid sessions to students and also online, right? So you have to think about the complexities of planning that is required to just regularly teach within a classroom setting to now put this to asynchronous and synchronous frameworks online. And again, families, taking care of your family, the household. Andrew raised very valid questions as to whom is paying for the extra utilities that is required to run in your home, the bandwidth that is required, the use of your cell phone when being called by, other parties within your work environment. So there's a great deal. I'm not a proponent for online work. It was great because of the pandemic and what was happening. However, we have to talk about the real estate component. You have major corporations that are locked into huge lease deals because many do not own those buildings that they have, but they have been locked into 10 and 20-year lease deals that are paying huge amounts of money because we know that the cost has exorbitantly gone up. But yet you have a vacant office space, right? So we now see where several corporations are cutting their work staff because the two cannot work, right? They can't jive together and be able to sustain and fulfill the fulfillment. So I'll leave it at that because you're going to jump into some of the other parts, but some very good things already stated.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So Camille, this is gonna bring us to the second show. I know we did talk about the advancing careers. We're gonna come back. That's gonna probably tie into the next one. But I want to ask you a specific question. Can working from home, and again, this is where we've alluded to, help or hinder caregivers who are still on the workforce?
So I just wanted to mention that, from what Andrea and Yvette were talking about, we have to look at employee benefits very differently because people will need support for their home office. They also need overhead costs. We also need to look at the convenience aspect of working from home. There's some people who find it more convenient to work from home because there are caregivers. This is a particularly important issue for what we call the sandwich generation. These are persons who are typically millennials and Gen Y, persons in their 20s and 30s and 40s who are raising their own families. At the same time, they have to take care of their ailing parents. We know that what's coming down the pike is that in the area of dementia, which is a field in which I currently work, we know that although we have more than 500,000 people living in Canada with dementia, between now and 2030, we're looking at potentially 1 million persons. We are seeing that the sandwich generation, these are mostly people who are mid-career or persons who want to move up in their career, will have serious challenges trying to juggle caregiving, working from home with its convenience aspect that they don't have to commute. But then again, it's going to be wearing on them mentally. They will not be able to take a break. The healthcare policy in Quebec, and I think throughout Canada, is more about aging in place, keeping seniors in their homes as long as possible, which then means that that informal caregiving will become more and more prevalent, and persons who are in the workforce then may opt for hybrid or may opt for working from home so that they can juggle their caregiving responsibilities. What this means is that a lot of the persons who are taking care of their aging parents as well as their children, their growing children, is that they also will have some issues. They will need support above and beyond just the computer, the internet, the access to Zoom or Teams and virtual meetings. They're going to need access to things like telehealth, where they can call and get medical advice or psychological support from their employee assistance programs. And they will need to have more flexible working conditions, that maybe not working 9 to 5, even though that they're working from home. They may need to have some added flexibility in those hours to handle caregiving responsibilities. And I just want to mention too that those of us from the Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Canadian communities, we generally do not warehouse our seniors in seniors' residences when they're becoming ill. We tend to take care of them at home. And that puts an additional strain on the person who is working from home and caring for a loved one in home. So,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So before we move on, Yvette, we really haven't introduced you, or you haven't introduced yourself. It's very, for this purpose, I'm going to ask you just quickly to introduce yourself. And you have mentioned also the online versus the students teaching an opportunity. And just respond to Camille's sharing about the breach or the branching of care. Would you want to do that? First, introduce yourself, please, Yvette, and then you can respond to Camille, and then I'll move on again. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. So quickly, by profession, I'm an educator. Social justice and advocacy and activism is my key thing within the social justice realm. Won't bother with titles and that. But the sense of care, yes. Right now, it's not as bad as when we were in the pandemic era per se. However, you do have children that have the, spillover, and parents who still have some form of a fear with regards to what might still be out there, or the impacts based on their children for autoimmune issues or other medical concerns. So they're home doing their lessons. And yes, it's still the issue of who is paying for that extra supervision or care or resources that's required for them to still be at home. Either they could be monitored or non-monitored, right? So there's other spillovers that go from within that various facets. But for my case scenarios within the professional realm of professionals, and the fact that our time, right? Our time cannot be quantified enough in the sense of the value that we are given to employers. I'm sure it's going to be a question you bring later, but we're not adding up to the fact, I think, Andrea brought it forward, that you're spending more than 8 hours doing work for your employer. I no longer will do that. In what I do, I lock off my phone. The contract stipulates we're finished at 3:30. So my phone or anything I'm doing with work ends at 3:45. I've given well over 20 odd years of service that's gone above and beyond, where we are not resourced, we are not appreciated, we are not compensated. So therefore you get nothing more from me. I'm not going online unless it's something online that I put value to or I wish to give to you, where we have a majority of the workforce who still feel that they are, they have to. Because to, Andrew's point, in the sense, people are not looking at their contracts. They do not know their collective agreements. Many want the advancement that has been stated, so they feel that they have to go above and beyond. to think to be recognized by the employer. But in many cases, that extra work that you are doing and putting yourself in stress positions is not recognized, neither monetarily nor through extra benefits or through that promotion that one seeks. And we got to remember what the color of our skin looks like when we're talking about also the advancements within our various work environments.
Thank you. Thank you. So I hear planning is definitely top of the list. We've touched on expenses. We've talked about care, personal, and sharing our responsibility. Um, we have some statistics. I'm not sure who wants to share them. We can come back to them. We can also share that on our chat later. But I also hear the importance of convenience. And I heard Camille, you kind of alluded to also experience of who's going to provide the care at home, how we're going to be treated while working professionally versus managing the home. And I don't know, did you want to address that now, or did you want me to move on and have Andrea share a little bit more? Because a lot of this for the unionized employee, it's on the top of the list right now. However, for the non-union members, as well as the community caregivers, we still, is there someone, maybe Camille, you can share about that, and Andrea, you can share where the union is, what are the union or the union advocacy team and participants. We can also look and see what the employees are asking for. I know we can hear that a lot, but I'm going to ask you, Andrea, first to tell us what are the union reps and leaders view. I know this is up, you didn't expect this at all, but I'm hoping after this you can see, you may have some content you can add here. What are the union and the employers looking at giving you the power to do for the employees when it comes to advocacy for both your elderly family members and the children?
So that's I would say quite interested. And um, as for the Labor Council, I think the best role for us so far is not just where we are just taking care of a union, someone with a union card, but to look at the bigger picture when it comes to our community as a whole and how the impact of our community. And as much as we are talking about whether we work hybrid or we work virtual, I think we do have to go back and as labor to really look at what make us whole. And yeah, the pandemic put us into a position where we figure out a way to survive and cooperation figure out a way, but we have to come back down to equity and what that look like and whether we work at home, who benefits from it in the end, right? It sounds good. And then we look at a number of workers. Just recently, I have someone who reached out to me because it's a unionized environment. And what we find happen, there's a large group of those workers who gets to work at home. And so another group of workers lost their job. Because if you're the cafeteria worker that was serving those workers, now you don't have any work. And it comes down to the union negotiating to a point where it's agreed that these workers will work maybe 3 days at home and 2 at work. So you now have part-time worker and not necessarily all of them that are working. As I do a little bit more search, I find transit. We take on a lot of that and we push our members to take that on to the poll to go and vote on these issues. But is it going to come sooner when we find that report is showing that Monday to Friday, transit is low. And the weekend when family go out, then ridership is up. So we're looking at job loss in many ways that we could, as we try to fix some, and I'm also hearing of whether it impact in the home of worker pitting against each other. The ones that have to stay at work while the others stay home was saying to the union, you now need to bargain more money for me because I'm out there and the others are not. And so does that mean as a union, we have to look at how much money this person will be taking home if they're at home and the employer saying back, why should I pay you all of that? You don't have to get the bus anymore. You don't have to do all this. And so part of the solution coming from some union, the advantage of worker at home could be if they have childcare, rather than if you have a before and after childcare, or it could be your senior person that you take care of, you could pick up that child and hop on back to the job, and vice versa, which again, it seemed like work never end. Because I know there are times I'm working and then I look around and find everybody way past dinner time and it's over because I never left the computer. So I feel when it comes to our, whether it's taking care of our family, whether it's elderly or our own children, we got to be careful of what we are doing that make it where work take over, and we are negotiating with work time over our children. And in the community that look to labor to lift up those standards, when we get the better off of it, what happened to the worker during the pandemic? We look at caregiver, we look at all these worker that was out there saying they saved the day, but then a lot of what we are doing now, we find a lot of restaurants they're closing down because a lot of people are not out there.
Thank you,
And so
Andrea. Thank you. I'm gonna, because you just given a little bit of what Camille was sharing. Thank you again. Not to cut you off, but you did, Camille. You've mentioned, before I go into that, you know, you've mentioned the statistics. Some it says statistics prove that working from home was more productive than being in the office. But Camille, you also share the benefits and the potential of losing opportunity for advancement when not actively in the office versus working from home. So I'm going to let you share that again with us, just so that our audience can get the full impact of your views on that. And that is supportive of exactly what Andrea and Yvette was saying. And Yvette, thank you. I like that you've set clear boundaries. You've actually taken the advantage of your choices. And some of us don't know this. So I'm going to let Camille share benefits, potential loss, and opportunities of either or.
Okay, so I smiled when Andrea brought up the question of childcare. Here's the thing. What some people are saying is that they're going to do a hybrid way of working. They'll work 2 days in the office and 3 days remotely. Or they'll ask their employer to give them flexible hours, right?
And that's a trust issue, right? That's where we talked about.
That's the trust issue is one thing. But the other aspect of it that really concerns me is that, and I read an article some time ago, is that flexible hours and hybrid work may not necessarily benefit a lot of working women. And I'm speaking from the point of view of women too, because what happens there is that women who are who are taking on a hybrid format for doing their work, they end up not benefiting from career advancement because they end up staying in very junior roles. Why? Because many of them cannot afford like housework care or nannies or people to supervise their children on the days that they're not on the days that they're not at the office. Although the office is telling them, their employer is telling them that yes, they can work from home, but on some days. But then what happens on the days when they're not working from home? There's no supervision, there's no auxiliary, there's no extra salary for them to take care of business at home in that hybrid model. So what happens is that a lot of these women eventually end up staying in very junior roles, okay? The other thing is there's some people who say that they are more productive when they work from home. It depends on the type of job that you have. I would say if you have a job that doesn't require where you're likely to get more interrupted, that are more interrupted at frequent interruptions. When you're at home, you might get less interruptions, and that might give you more productivity. But the problem is that there's an expectation where for employers that you're always available, and the trust issue is not there, and the lines get blurred between work time, break time, which is essential for employee wellness, and also when it's time to close down the computer or close down or stop working.
Thank you.
So, right.
Thank you. So I have a question. It's coming from here. We have, it's a fact actually, that only 10% of employees have childcare issues. And what the issue is, how can we really represent this issue? That's an open question. And I think I want to ask Yvette, what's your view as in the education facility or the space? Do you think we're going to go back to in person for teaching and working? And I can also ask Andrea. And if so, if yes, why? And if no, also why? So Yvette, I'll let you go first, and then I'm gonna share. I have a second part of the question based on your answer for Andrea.
So for me, it comes back, right? We're dealing with the conspiracy issue and what's happening. So those who believe in the whole vaccine and what's happening, so we know disease X is now, they just met about disease X to find out how to treat it. I didn't know you can work on what you don't know about, but okay, so disease X is being pushed for the potential of another lockdown. So we may very well go into the framework of being back in our homes if people are willing to, buy into that aspect of the fear mongering that is pushed. So to your answer and question, yes, we may very well go into it depending, right? But there's several things. And then, so Claudia, Camille sort of had raised the aspect, and we have to remember at work too, people are being surveilled, right? You are now, employers are putting in the camera systems that you have to answer a call within a certain time period, respond within a certain time period, be back at your computer within a certain time period. So we're not discussing those other issues of, again, the stress, the mental health component, all these other factors that build up of you thinking of being at home. The being at home and working online only works really well for a certain subset of a career. The majority of other careers, you have to interact with people. You've got to see what's happening, read the policies, engage with what's new. What are the new avenues or ventures that the corporation is going into or the business to be able to aid you to go further? Because part of the 4 major issues of working online is the lack of communication that is being lost, even as to who delegation of responsibilities are put towards, right? So you even have issues of online concerns of discipline, but who's supposed to be disciplining the people that are not there? You have the legal frameworks of people, wanting to fight employers because they're being over surveilled and all these other things. We don't have legislation, or we don't have those things that we're looking at. So there's a great deal. I would say I definitely won't be going back online. I'm a little bit of I'm a rebel, so I'll be one of those people, those guys that know that. So
Thank you.
that's not going to happen for me.
Thank you. So thank you. So Camille, did you want to add anything to that? That is the question. Or do you think we're going to stay hybrid, or are we going to go back? I mean, Yvette has shared what, we know what's going on, but this is for conversation and just your views really. Yes, we talk about women, and we've also addressed that the childcare is based on stats. Only 10% of us have children, but what I'm hearing is the requirement for us to advocate for ourselves, set boundaries, manage your time, and plan to deliver balance. So, Camille, share with me what you think, because you talk about elderly care. So we're going to move on from childcare. We're going to talk about elderly care. Why? Because dementia, Alzheimer's, and the all balance is required. And then I'll come back around to Andrea.
Well, so from where I stand, I see that I don't see us going back 100% to in presence working. I see what will eventually emerge is a hybrid format of working. Okay. There are some jobs now that are, when you see the job postings, they put hybrid is as a benefit. It's something that will draw people in or to get some candidates in. There are living spaces now, apartment buildings that are being constructed that have home offices outside of the apartments that you live in, but in the same building. So what I'm saying is that there is a configuration of benefits and of the way in which people live now to accommodate hybrid work. Okay, and even if you say only 10% of the people who are in in the workforce have an issue with childcare, I have a bit of an issue with that too, because what has happened is that pre-pandemic, was it 10% pre-pandemic? A lot of women have actually dropped out of the workforce because they were not able to handle child responsibilities and work responsibilities. So I question the 10%. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying that it is an issue. And if we're going to live in a diverse society, we need to accommodate people who are raising children and who want to work. You have a lot of talented women out there who have a lot to offer to the world. The other thing is you have other women who are working in jobs that are unionized, and they have children and they have no other option, but they have to work. They cannot live just on the salary of their partner. So we have to accommodate that within the hybrid format that we're looking at as we're going forward.
So you're supporting entrepreneurship, some women building businesses. What do they call it? Multiple streams of income. So you are now on board with.
I support that, but I'm also saying that our organizations that are employing women, right, and employing anybody, but I'm really focusing on women right now because we are the ones who are suffering the most from the hybrid or the remote work situation. It is setting back gender equity or gender parity in some ways. I have been seeing that women are not feeling that they're getting the chance to move forward. They're being kept in junior roles because they're not getting the supports that they need from working in a hybrid way of working. I'm just saying that employers now have to look at how do they accommodate hybrid forms of working. We have a diverse workforce. We have a lot of women who are raising children and who want to advance in their career. We have technology that can support remote work and hybrid work, but we need the benefits to support that. We need to make sure that they are able to cover the costs of childcare. Yeah.
I hear you. So do you think we as women,
yes,
we have an opportunity to become employers for the new opportunities, such as you're talking about what we need? Maybe the employers are not in a position to deliver needs. We talk, Yvette, man, we did touch about the real estate, the expense of all these commercial spaces that may or may no longer be used. Do you think or see opportunities for us as women to now start our own, become employers and become better employers? I'm asking you this, and I'm going to ask Andrea, where does she see that opportunity, if there is that opportunity from her perspective? Bless you.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that what we've found from the hybrid working model is that people can work on a contractual basis. They can outsource contracts and work to people. We have people working and earning salaries, delivering jobs in foreign markets. There are lots of opportunities now that give women the opportunity to work with more flex time. Excuse me.
Bless you.
And I think that this is an opportunity for us to move forward and in the area of entrepreneurship, but at the same time, make sure that we're not shortchanging ourselves by, it doesn't put us at a disadvantage. Then if you're going to be self-employed, I call on the insurance companies to have, good health and health benefits for persons who can, have access to those benefits, even though they're not working for an employer who would normally give those benefits.
All right. I'm gonna go. Thank you. Thanks again, Camille. I'm gonna go to Andrea. Andrea, I know I asked the question, but I'm gonna open it up a little bigger here, because there's a question here about how are employers assisting workers with disabilities who are previously unable to work? Is this something being addressed? Because we're feeling it's not being adequately addressed. This is a question here. And does hybrid make it easier for others who were not in the workforce? This second part of the question, versus those in the workforce. So the ones that are not in the workforce, does hybrid give them an opportunity to earn income or provide service? And where are we when it comes to the unionized space? Again, advocacy is a big point here. And I just want to, just before we go, don't forget, guys, next week we're going to be talking a little more about the humanitarian rights and the legal rights when it comes to employment issues and choices. So, Andrea, go ahead and tell me what you feel. Do you feel people with disabilities are having opportunities, or are we further alienating or interrupting that opportunity for them?
Um, I think in one area, it's opportunity for someone with disability to be able to make whole in the workplace. But I can't help but go backwards to this is an important conversation that we have to have, that um, it's not this is not about equity, right? We have to remember all of the things that we are talking about, whether it's childcare, whether it's taking care of a loved one, people that work, whether they're the frontline worker, whether they're in the grocery store, have the same issue. And maybe COVID give us an opportunity to test and try another strategy of how we can get the job done. But we have to also keep in mind that whatever we are looking for, I think we have to consider the others that don't get to do virtual. A lot of these people are people of color. These are immigrants that come into this country, and they're not the white collar worker that stood out in the face of danger and try to figure out what happened, or they didn't work because they didn't have childcare. And so as they're back to work, or lost their job because the employer said, you got to get in here. I don't care if you're afraid of your coworker that passed with COVID. And I've seen that happen. Get to do that. So how do we come into the middle of looking at the gray areas? How do we come in the middle to make sure that for someone with disability that that's able to work? In the past, some, not all, maybe a small percentage might have different ways of getting into the workplace, and not all, it leaves some behind. So how do we meet in the middle to make sure that these workers are being considered as well? Someone with childcare, how do we bargain those collective agreement? We were using that to fight about affordable childcare. That's what we were doing. It wasn't anyone saying, I want to stay home. They were saying, I want affordable childcare. So part of this is to make sure that we're getting it right. That the person in the food store and all those people are still asking for affordable childcare. So how do we not go around it? At the same time, the fight around paid sick days. Does that mean if you work virtual now, you don't have to say you're sick? Because you're not getting out. You could just stay online and work as well. And I've seen some of that happen up until last week, where the person said, I'm just not feeling well, or a child, but the person is now hopping on a meeting here and hopping off. So we still not there yet. Like, I think it have to be not a cutoff where a group, we find like virtual work, it's a large percentage of those are white collar work. So we have another group of workers that's not into this discussion, that want the same. So when we talk about equity, we have to know that we learn a lot out of this pandemic, and how do we heighten the demand and making sure that the employer is putting in whether it's paid sick days, whether it's making sure that you're accommodating someone with disability, and all these different areas, but not at the expense, because we know that over time, people will retire out of a job and their new coworker is in another island. They're not here. And so because they're looking for employer, looking for whoever they can get the job done, not necessarily the person that we're talking about that's easier to be at work working. At some point, their coworker is not even in this country. As long and you know and those are some of the concerns that I do have, that the employer is not always thinking through as what we are looking at, how we work together. They're looking at how they get the job done, less benefit paid into those workers. Right now, some of them are already testing out robots to do some of those work. So how do we keep a eye to make sure that the price of working remote is not where it reduce worker and it reduce the mama and papa business around in our community that no longer connected. We have our own doctors that we're pushing. It's a job, and a lot of these doctors are virtually talking to us about something that we don't know is growing inside of us, and wondering when are we going to see. We have meetings that coworkers saying, when am I going to see my coworker, that we are able to have a dialogue about issue. How do you take on the boss if you're only virtual and never meet your coworker? Because just because you're working virtual doesn't mean that that boss is still not on your back.
Right.
How do
So
you
that's
take these
that's
on?
that's what I'm asking. Again, when I talk about us providing solution, it providing solutions could also be showing opportunities to run the mess. Like you're touching this again about how are we staying connected? How are we not missing opportunities? Camille mentioned missing opportunities for promotions and upliftment, but you've just now included missing opportunities to stay as a unit. um Yvette seemed to have she knows exactly what to do. We turn off work and we do other things to benefit ourselves, our own mental, social, and community health. So, thank you again. I think, Andrea, that is awesome. But what I'm hoping that we can take away, or our audience can take away, is seeing other ways of dealing with what seems like a challenge. Some of us don't want to go back to work. Some of us want to work from home. Some of us need more time. We're concerned about who's
Well, I'll jump in because I think she's frozen at the moment. But what I think we need to look at the points that were raised is, and it won't be popular, we need to get back to work in the buildings, right? Online hybrid should be utilized for those who rightfully pointed out have disabilities or autoimmune or real healthcare issues that are impacted, because we then are looking at the regression of a lot of the labor laws that have been fought for over the years to ensure that we have viable working environments for employees. If you are removed from that aspect, and Andrew can tell you, Marie Clark Walker is on the line, several other people, the fact that many individuals are not fully apprised of their rights as an employee. They don't know workers' rights, right? So the more we move away from that, the less individuals are more versed and have an understanding of what historically has happened for them to even have the job that they sit in, right? And we're putting so much emphasis on money. Everything is about a money gain right now, which there's nothing wrong about money gain, but your happiness is not tied to that if you do not have the environment to enable to thrive and those who really care about you to really develop that. So as we're moving and talking about the solutions have to be that everybody comes together on one aspect of a platform to say we need to work together for growth. Right? We need that growth mindset to occur and for individuals to be in the space and understand labor laws and where it works. It's all great to be online. And it was pointed out, you have the majority of people who really are online. It's not because it is something that is required for them to be there. It's because of the comfort that they have now become used to. And it's causing other issues at play. And again, it cannot be something that is sustained, because as was typed in the chat, it's not sustainable. You have huge corporations who are losing huge amounts of money, and it will always come down to the bottom line. As Andrea pointed out, we're dealing with AI. AI is coming in to take on a lot of what's doing as the online work, even some of the heavy lifting work in some of these in these factories, etc. So if we're not mindful, we're putting ourselves out of jobs. right? That's where we're sitting now with this situation, is being removed from jobs rather than receiving the benefits, right? And Camille, I see you leaning into to add something.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify in an earlier intervention that I made, I said, yes, this does provide opportunities for entrepreneurship and for people to find that to become self-employed. And then at the same time, that would mean for insurance companies to look at providing benefits that for individual business people. I just want to say that not everybody is going to become an entrepreneur. Not
No.
everybody wants to work in that way. People want to work in teams. Yes, they want to have the flexibility of doing hybrid work. They also want to have the flexibility of having flexible hours. And so I'm just going to say to you that we should not copying out of the workforce because your employer is not being sensitive to your needs or to the new normal of hybrid work should really not be an option. The world benefits from, and organizations benefit from the talents of people. And yes, the frontline workers, the person who is at the cash in a supermarket or a grocery store has as much a valued um, role to play as somebody who is sitting in the office. But I'm just saying that we should, a lot of what came out of the pandemic when people were working remotely and were overwhelmed, there were some women who actually dropped out of the workforce and they became invisible. So I'm just saying that entrepreneurship is not just an easy option for everybody. It's not for everybody.
No, I wasn't saying that. I'm just asking your opinion because what we're looking for is to expand the advocacy. How can we support each other? I hear, and you made it clear that we're trying to focus on women and how we're going to adapt and move forward in this new society. Thank you again. Thank you for sharing and thank you for clarifying that. Yvette, thank you also. I wanna make sure that we're not missing anything. We're clear about who's benefiting. We're also clear about what we are experiencing. So the challenge still maintains to be accessibility. Accessibility not only to care, service, and options, but we are still looking for better advocacy. Do you agree? You agree there? I heard you talk about missing those opportunities. Yvette, I know exactly how you feel about this, but would you share with us, other than sticking to a schedule, managing our time, and planning, give us maybe some insight of what we can do or how you feel we can move ahead as a team. And again, not missing the future chats to come, because we're gonna have some good content coming about human rights, the legal aspects. You, Camille, you talk about a lot of women becoming, or a lot of employees becoming invisible. We don't want to stay as women, but I'm sure men have suffered as well. This experience of having to provide at home, remotely or hybrid, versus not being promoted or maintaining employment. So Yvette, you want to share a little bit more for us? Maybe we can give some education views, because the teachers are very important, not only in the past, but what's going on happen in the future is also very important. And maybe some students that are on here listening can actually shift how they're going to move ahead with what's available to them.
But it's two different aspects. What students require and then what educators require are very different, right? So I'm just going to keep stressing, because I'll stick with the adults with our conversation, right? Is the fact that people need to know their collective agreements. This mindset of many employees to say, I don't need my union, I don't know what the union's for, or, those who may not even have a union, but yet have not read employment legislation, they need to become very versed.
Aware.
Because as we see, things are being very fluid by employees. The people are going to take advantage. They're going to, try to, monopolize as much as they can because again, it is the bottom line. And individuals need to know what is your work agreement? When does your day start? When does your day end? In particular, a lot of individuals need to really pay attention to when your day starts. That is the main area when you think about termination of jobs is the consistent lates or that many individuals happen to occur within their employment, right? So they can get you more so on lates than you being absent from your job, right? So people really need to pay attention to what's there because some employers may have the policy of what's it called, attendance policy that they create, and you have to go for a while, and then still if you miss or things happen there. But people need to really become very, very well acquainted to their collective agreements, speak with their labor people, attend their OFL and the CLC, and pay attention to what's happening and what's new and with the implementation of the various arguments being put forward. But also know your work environment. Also know your own body. What are you able to really fulfill? What can you comply with? How long can you sit in a particular chair? So we're talking about ergonomically, if you're sitting online, you're rolling me even here for an hour. You've seen me lean back, slouch, look away, right? So I don't know how some people can be there for the whole time period online. And again, eyesight, my eyes have become terrible for just the, year and a half being online. I used to have perfect vision. Now I have readers. I have to sit there and put on glasses after a while I'm reading. So the effect is happening. Some people are not recognizing, but they can have back issues, leg issues. They're getting tremors. They're getting the vision issues, headache, right? So it all there. Plus the weight gain. Many people are eating at their desk. You haven't got up. You're so sedentary. You have not gotten up to move and do anything. Diabetes is happening. Like we hear all of these things that are going on, and it's attributed. So it's about people clearly understanding not just the legislative framework of what it is to be an employee and within a work environment, but also your physical health and what is required for you to be an individual to move. I've gained tons of weight, right? And I'm a person for the most part, I'd be out and going, but you realize you start sitting down, even when we're in the work environment, like for Andrea, other people, we're at meetings. So you leave work, you go to a meeting, you drive to another meeting, you may have to go to another meeting. I can even imagine for Andrea, because just to be different work sites, and what does everybody have? Coffee, tea, strumpets, cookies, donut, you know what I mean? So you're continually, we are eating even in these environments we don't realize because you don't really get home to have a great meal. I'm not home sometimes till 10 o'clock at night, but I cut that off. I will only now go to what I want to go to or where there's a sufficient benefit to society, but we cannot sit there and keep giving. And maybe because
Thank
I'm
you.
older, my child's older, that's another group we have to look at. We have women whose children are older, so we do not have child dependency or people that we have to go and rush home to, but we have to make sure we're looking about ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Andrea, is she there?
Yes,
Andrea,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forget I was on mute. So yeah, and and I'm in full agreement with everything that I'm hearing from everyone here. And I just want to say, as this is an amazing topic for us to discuss and well overdue as we look at recovery. It's something that we're not really the reality of how we're going to function moving forward. We hear from everyone, and I think for labor certainly that we're not returning back to the old normal. And so that's clear, but we got to look at when we look at growing workforce for new people that's coming in, young people that we're talking about coming into these workplace. What happened to these people that hire online? I hear one person said to me just recently that she was hired to work and never met her employer. And this is financial institute, never met her employer. And imagine what that feel like for someone walking by and not sure, or when the time comes, if it's on Zoom to discipline her to do all of that. And young people, I chuckle a little bit the other day because, as I hear of one concern, a young person coming in and didn't even look on those short days, like that person is ready to work. And I said, what do you expect? Before that person left school, they used to be under the sheet with the camera off in class, and that motivation is not there. And you get into the workplace, and it's the same as well, because you don't see your coworker. And also hearing of how it's still the fight, the person that show up and schedule days in the workplace versus the other that show up the other few days. There's a note that left for that person. So there's no connection there. The isolation with this. If you're an admin person, most time you don't get to be remote, because it's clear you now need to be in there to accept the mail and all the stuff that's happening in there. So how do we make sure all these are taken into consideration and not and key things that we think in our daily life that we need to push for? We're not just gonna just shortchange it because we see an opening with the pandemic here. Because what I'm fearful for, even though we think we're getting somewhere with it, we do know most of these employers do not want to put more money. And they're back at the think tank thinking about, as I accept my employee virtual, what is in it for me and how can I save off of the back of it? So we have to make sure that we have solidarity, which we can lose in this, and to keep our eye on the things that matter to us and how do we continue the fight, not to unload it because they now say work from home or work 3 days and I'll, and you're not there, so it's cheaper for me. They will always be at the think tank thinking of how, as I do this, what do I save out of this, not what they're going to contribute to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Camille, did you want to add anything to this? And then we're gonna look at maybe again, I keep kind of asking, is there opportunities for us employees to do more socially since we're working so much? And Yvette did make it clear that we need to do more community for our personal development and our mental health, and our better good. So Camille, what are your views on the same topic? Like where do you see, I ask about how we're going to approach this. How can we work with what we have and still feel good at the end of the day?
Okay. I think it's very important for employees to ask their employers to invest in communication best practices. In other words, keep regularly scheduled bi-directional communication channels to allow for formal and informal communication between leaders, their direct reports, and among peers, so that we can learn and share challenges and successes in adapting to work in the new normal. We have to keep talking in person, online, and keep things open. And as the issues arise, we should bring those to the table and to build an understanding with our employers. I think I just want to, it has been raised again by Yvette and also um, by Antoinette that we need to,
Andrea?
Andrea, sorry, I'm so sorry, to
That's okay.
prioritize and implement disability risk mitigation, disability risk measures to make sure that our employees who are at home or working in hybrid situations, the social isolation does not affect them adversely from a mental health point of view, that they have the right equipment so that they don't come up with disability issues which have to do with back strain, eye strain, and all of those other things. We need to advocate for those things. We also need to empower women to manage their careers and continue to support their professional advancement. We should have ways to involve women in projects that will advance their careers. We should be having mentorship and other professional development programs, both online and in person, have that also aligned with the hybrid format. And a big thing for me is empathy and understanding the situation of your employees. Empathy needs to be a core value of our corporate cultures across the board. Leaders need to empathize and to see the perspective of the different types of persons in their workforce and adjust our working conditions to make sure that our staff can operate optimally and function at their highest potential.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I did that so I could pay attention. I forgot. Now, I was asking if you felt that we're lacking empathy, or could we, is that how you feel about the industry right now? Both the employer, employee, how can we improve? I really, and the reason I'm asking you, Camille, again, is because you have made some very important points, and what you're sharing is also a contributor to what is coming. You know, we got this new mental health, emotional health, lack of balance issues at most on most agendas. Do you feel that we're lacking empathy, or they're on either sides or both sides?
Well, I would say that anytime organizations are focused on the bottom line, okay, um, they really do not pay attention to employees' needs. No matter what people say about, um, creating the ideal workplace and how we care about our employees, once people have to answer to their stakeholders or to the shareholders or to the board of directors on financial issues, empathy for the individual employee does not uh,
Important.
it's not something that is sustainable. And I think empathy and kindness are two elements of culture. And this is not motherhood and apple pie, right? I want to say that Jacinda Ardern, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, she spoke about that at the United Nations, that we need to treat people with more kindness and empathy, and the world will become a better place. When
I
you
agree.
look, yes.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Andrea, are you there?
Yes.
We're just a quick view on the same topic: empathy, kindness, and at least being a little bit more supportive. I get what you're saying, but what are your views when it comes to the lack of or not enough? Which is not enough, the lack of or none at all?
Yeah.
Could we do better?
Definitely. We can always do better. And as I raised earlier, um, I think the positive and the negative side of this pandemic open our eyes that we can do better. And again, as I said, like I feel like the people that really need this kind of a support, the workers that need this kind of a support, the community that need this kind of a support, they're not looking for empathy. They're not looking for people feeling sorry for them. They're looking for the support, the solidarity support to make sure it happens. And if this is a crack in the door, the crack in the door to make some of these things happen, and we have to move faster, because the longer we take, a lot of these people get used to it, and it fall by the wayside. I am for it. But as I said, like I also want us to think through and to be ready to broaden this discussion more, broaden it more in a sense where we have a checkbox of what can happen. We have a checkbox of, through this pandemic, how employer was quick to make the job continue. The solution was there. They hire others outside, expertise out there, to show how they can continue to make money and to continue to function. If it was about laying everybody off and the money keep coming, they would have done that. But yes, workers are important to their business, and so I just want us to think through, and the people that need this the most, that we continue to fight for these areas, and also to make sure that we are not seen as someone that's looking for betterment for a percentage. And the people that from day one through this pandemic that would love to open up their workplace in their basement or in their kitchen wasn't able to do that, turn around and say, what about me? I have childcare, what about me? And so it's us understanding the importance of all these areas. And if my employer agree or come to me, not necessarily me, and ask me to do my work at home, how do we make sure that that work is not devalued? because now I'm not seen as someone to be promoted because the employer is comfortable with me getting the job done at home, but not moving up. How do we keep them on their toes? But yes, a big part of this is about equity and making sure that we are lifting each other, and not just seeing as, okay, here's an opportunity where we look at how we continue and building internally in our home space. What if I don't want to work in my home? Can the employer turn around and say, I'm sorry, 90% of my employee agree, you either work, suck it up, or move on somebody else. We can get
Thank
to
you.
this place so as well. So I share the feeling of it, but I just want us to make sure that as we get into the middle of having this discussion, it benefit the entire community and not necessarily where it look like it's a half of the pie somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you. I got that. I'm glad you said it. I was looking for that exact statement 2 questions back. So Camille, Andrea just shared again, what we need to advance our careers while exploring all the options. If you didn't have anything to add to what Andrea just said, Yvette, do you have anything to add what Andrea said? Because it's actually coming together now. We are all in agreement when we look at this opportunity. But Camille, do you still feel now, or do you feel now that we are having opportunities to advance our career wherever we choose?
I don't.
You don't, or
no,
you do?
I don't think that. Okay, individuals have to make their have to make the effort to advance their careers, right?
Yes.
I'm just saying that if employers are rigid and they are not willing to accommodate the needs of employees who want to advance, then you're pushing a rock up against the side of a mountain. I remember Michelle Obama saying that when she was applying for a job. This was when her husband was running for the Senate. She went to the employer and she brought one of her babies, her younger daughter, into the meeting, and she said to him, "Look, I will not work part-time. I will not fob off. This is what I need in order to give you the job that you want me to do." And she negotiated from there. Not everybody has the gumption to do that. But what I'm saying is that we have to speak up now to get it. Let's not take hybrid work or working from home as a convenient benefit that is going to help us. I'm saying that there's a downside to it, and if you have to keep advocating for it.
All right. So I agree. Yes, I heard exactly what you said. So maybe my question wasn't clear. You've just confirmed. You're saying, yes, we have to ask for the support. And with what you said, and I should have used all the words, we need to provide, deliver, and show kindness and empathy. And when doing so, now, do you feel there's going to be an opportunity for us to advance our career exploring all the work options?
Yes.
So that the answer is yes. Because I had to rephrase that, because I also saw a chat in the chat says no. So let me rephrase it. If we are able to apply, show empathy and kindness while exploring our options with the empowerment to ask, do you or do we feel there may be opportunities to advance our careers? Maybe not 100% of us, but do we feel it would be a better opportunity, at least 60% of us?
Well, the employer has
one at a time. First, we're gonna ask. Then we're gonna hope that they find it in them to provide the empathy and kindness. So, Camille, you're gonna finish. Yvette says no still, and we're gonna see if we can get at least some positive. Leave this table feeling better. Go ahead and finish, Camille, and then I'm gonna have Yvette hold your no. Let me just have Camille finish what she was saying.
I'm just saying that if the employer is empathetic, in other words, understands or takes the time to understand the diverse needs of the persons in their workforce,
yeah,
and is not focused primarily on on the way he or she wants the employee to work, but to find the optimal balance to optimize the skill of the employee and also provide a workplace that is supportive of people's needs as well as their talents and their capacity to give to the success of the organization. Yes, we can advance, but I'm saying it's a two-way street. And
I agree. I
right.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Also saying that let us not assume that working from home now is a glorious opportunity for us to now have a more convenient way of working, because there are
Well,
downsides to it.
Yeah, we get that. Well, and as we're wrapping, I get that. So what I wanted to, as we're trying to wrap, we want to make sure that we are clear and at least we have delivered what we came to deliver today. So Yvette, do you still feel no? I'll let Yvette go ahead and then I'll have Andrea add. I can see opportunity here. So thank you, Camille. Yes, it's clear. So what I'm going to rephrase, employer could find some empathy and kindness. We could continue to ask with respect, and then we can explore all options. Yvette, where do you see this?
So no.
Still no.
We don't live in a utopian world. So let's just be realistic. There's no way you're getting those 60%. And we have two managerial styles. It's called either you are management or you have leadership. Leadership is what inspires people to want to work, and you do more within a workplace. There are a few work environments where you have real leadership. The majority of work employers, it's about management. So when we look about even being online, the people that got promoted in this whole online world are the management style of people, not leadership style. If we go into education, you'll see people who are either superintendents, executive superintendents, associate directors. They're not people who can lead. They do not inspire no one. When they step into a room, there's no one looking to them for inspiration. They're merely the manager. Right? And that's from an educational framework. So you think about, and Andrea goes into the real work environment sites. It's about management. I love what Camille is trying to put towards that. We need real leadership to inspire. And then if you have people to inspire and look at creating a real equitable workplace, people can think about being promoted. But I then too will flip it on the other side. How am I having someone lead me who I've never engaged with, has never shown up or had any form of interaction whatsoever in a work environment where I can either see both their tutelage, their application, and then their communication skills? How are you being promoted to be a supervisor or anyone to lead? So there's a great deal that we have to talk about. It's not a simplification of saying that. I understand, yes, people are at home, they're working hard. They should have the right opportunities to be able to advance within a promotional framework. But we have to take in, that's why we have all those metrics and check boxes as to what people have to come off with. So should we create equity for those who need to be online based on medical conditions or certain things? Yes, but childcare, we advanced for childcare. We fought for childcare to be available in all work sites, to be affordable, all these other factors. So we do not want to get caught up in the sense that because someone is comfortable at home, that's why we should have that available to it. We should have it available for those who require it. I clearly believe for an equitable framework, you must have that. But I'm sorry, no, that's not going to happen.
Okay, so we're not getting 50. We're gonna go for 50 then. I'm taking back my 20. So Andrea, do you want to add that? Thank you, Yvette. Andrea, is there anything you want to add? We're all in agreement. We're just saying the same thing different ways, in different places.
Different ways, yes.
Yeah.
And and I again, like I hear you, Camille, and I'm listening to Yvette as well. And I want to believe that if we really think we've got this pat down, that the employer, I'm not even picking the worker anymore, the employer who agrees to use my home to do my job, and suddenly it's an entire workforce that's online working. Out of that, that employer and myself, I should be able to push back with my employer as well, and my employer recognizing the hard work I'm doing virtual, because that's where the office now is in my home. That's one. If it's because I am working at home and worrying that this employer is not giving me the credit that I deserve to be promoted higher, then we got to really think through. You know, when we look at a study that shows 58% of the people that work at home are the ones with the at least the bachelor degree, and the white collar worker up there. I have to agree, like, I think whether you're at home or you're in the workplace, the actual workplace, and you feel like you're losing that opportunity, you're right. It's still about fighting hard for it. Still push back to say I deserve it. Because I'm working at home shouldn't take that away. If as I'm saying, if the workplace became my home and my coworker home, then where is my value? So
Yeah.
if that's where I need to be promoted, yes, by every right, I should have to be able to put the call out to say to my employer, what's the deal here? If it wasn't
Yeah.
COVID and I was inside the actual work address, I would be saying the same thing. So I
Thank you.
don't think this part of it should be an area where, because it's virtual now, that should take away my right to be promoted. It means that if
Thank you.
there was no COVID, I would still be having this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very profound. As we try to wrap, I mean, we can all take away the fact now that some information now that yes, we still have that communication or that conversation to be had. We need to take in consideration. This is how we wrap. This is what I'm getting. If you don't agree, you can tell me. We need to have the conversation. We need to continue sharing. We need to recognize that what is on the table is not for everybody. Am I getting all the yeses here now? We are together, finally. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Let me just check. Is there anything that I've missed in the chat? Because I'm not seeing the chat. Is there anybody in the audience that had a question that we should have addressed?
Well, Marie had asked a question with regards to students online and the high incidence of potential for suicide or other crime issues with regards to socialization that we're having. And yes, it has risen with regards to our children being online, locked away in the house, the lack of socialization and interaction and integration of things happening. So it is something that a lot of the boards are looking at. The ministry is also looking at new mental health protocols that are put in place and our suicide prevention protocols. So there is a great deal, but as a whole, we need to get our children back to play, as we saw about the risk play being brought back out, that we need to have children outside, engaging, learning to interact, understand that you're not always going to agree, learn how to settle issues with regards to their own communication style. So there is a lot that is happening, but it's true. The online learning has really created a void in the sense of the natural communication and interactive styles that children should have and know.
Thank you, Yvette. That was a question I asked for. I was trying to get to you a while ago, but we chose to talk about the adults. So thank you again for coming back and including our youths and our, what do we call them, our children in here, because we're still going to have to lead and manage, whether it be at home, in our community, or at work. Thank you for answering that question, because I was trying to get that clear earlier, but we're trying to focus on the employer. So again, I think we did all right. We covered some to-dos here. We got some great ideas. I want to thank Andrea, Camille, Yvette, and the team at the back, Donna, Daniela. Again, and let's remind the audience that we have these fireside chats are continuing. Next week, we have another big, interesting one. I think we can all meet every week, even if we only come on for a part of it. But thank you all, and see you next week, and see you in the future. Thanks for your continued support, and thanks for taking of your time today to share your Sunday with 100 ABC Women and the audience.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment. It's your time.